Let's
Great.
talk some puck with our man, former Flyers defenseman Chris Therien. Chris, great to get you back on the show.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
This is fun times. When we started this season, Jeff and I talked and we said we wanted the team to be exciting and relevant. We've got that. Talk to us about the start of the season as the leadership held their midway press conference earlier this week.
Yeah, I think it's been really, really good. In terms of what we'd seen before and where the team was at and where they're at now. I mean, there's been a shifting of gears and accountability to the players at the same time, but then an accountability to one another, and that's why they're playing well. They're working hard. They give honest effort every single night. And when you do that, you're gonna make a lot of teams look bad that aren't ready to play you. The Flyers came into this year with an attitude of like, what do we got to lose? Nobody thinks we're going to be good. Nobody thinks we're going anywhere. We're not going to win a cup. That's what everyone was saying. And they show what hard work and perseverance is, and trying to prove people wrong. There's still, they have a lot of work to do, but from where you're at, just looking from the human side of it and what we want to see in Philadelphia, they've answered the bell. There's no doubt about that.
So far the organization from Keith Jones to Daniel Briere to Coach Torts all seem to be rowing in the same direction. They all seem to have a game plan. How refreshing is it to see this organization from the top all be rowing in that direction together and have a game plan and be sticking to it, committed to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's important, and again, it's going to be what their vision is. And that's the key to the future, what they think and who the players that they get here are going to be, integral to the future. And I'm sure they have a roadmap that they've looked at. I think, look at a team like Tampa and see what they've done over the years is a pretty good starting point, in terms of how to rebuild a team and to stay with it and then have a good team for a few years. So that's really what you want to try to build. Again, I always tell people in pro sports, it's like a moving target a lot of times, and you just never know what you're going to get sometimes or what you're going to hit. And so, I always tell people, implore people with this year is that be proud of the team they are, but also understand that this is not the team moving forward. This is not the final product by any stretch of the imagination.
We talk about the final product and we talk about the new leadership. Let's talk about the Cutter Gauthier situation. That obviously was not ideal. They had what they thought would be a top piece in the future coming here. That didn't work out. Can you talk about how the front office handled the situation? And then also as a defenseman, what you've seen out of what they got with James Drysdale?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the Cutter thing caught everybody off guard. I don't think anybody saw that coming at all. So, yeah, if you got a guy, like they said, if he doesn't want to play here or he wants to go somewhere else, well, then I think I think the Flyers did a good job getting rid of that situation altogether, rather than it lingering around, people talking about it. Oh, what's going to happen? So they ended it before it even began, and that was a good thing. Drysdale, he's a good player. He skates extremely well. Reminds me of his skating is a little bit like Paul Coffey, who I played with in my career for a few years. But he's also a guy who's got work to do on his game. He's got some stuff that's so raw, the way he moves offensively, but at the same time, he's got some things that he needs to correct, and that's because of where he's been over the years. He hasn't probably learned properly, but boy, he's got a good future. He's with the skating alone, that should ensure a pretty good career.
What do you think of the coaching staff as it's currently committed, as far as, is this the right group to get young players in a position to be successful?
Well, Danny Briere, yesterday in the press conference seems to think, here Torts was a veterans coach and he's actually really applauded the job he's done with young guys. Torts is an interesting study if you look at him over his career. Every single team he's been on, no matter what their capabilities are, he's done something like this every year. Columbus beating Tampa. Remember the 4 straight? They swept them several years ago. And no one, like, how did that happen? It was an 8-1 and they swept them out. But he gets you to buy in. The problem is unless you have the horses and that team for a guy like that, you can't recreate or expect to reduplicate one year to the next unless you have the horses. I don't know how close they are to thinking that they have the horses here for him to continue down the road. But in the moment, he's coached brilliantly. I can't say that. But I also tell people, like, yeah, as good as his team is right now, this is why it's important for me. Like, when I'm looking, I don't use anyone's opinions but my own. But when I look at this team, there's no way you can stand pat and say, wow, we're second in the Metro and things are looking good. That's absolutely not the case. There has to be a lot of turnover. There will be turnover. And the job isn't done until this team has a product on the ice that has a chance to win every spring. And right now, they're not there. This is a team that's missed the playoffs several years in and out. It was a decade of a lot of futility, I found, in the last, since going back 10, 12 years here. I mean, you didn't know who you were. You had a pretty good talent with Giroux at the front, but you're going in, you're out, you're in, you're out, and that doesn't work. That formula stinks, and it wears your fan base down. And that's what happened to me. You just can't keep fooling the fans by telling them we're good, and then you're in the playoffs, you're out of the playoffs. That's disservice to, I think, people. The thing I like most about Danny and Jonesy is their messaging. They message like with honesty, and that's one of the reasons. Like I've gone in house with the podcast Snow the Goalie. They wanted people to have transparency with the fans and to tell them the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So that's what I do over there. And spending time with Flyers fans, being around the building has been great again for me. But messaging's been good by Danny and Jonesy, but they have a lot of work to do, and they know that.
They have been very honest. And, Jeff and I have wondered what that's going to be like, because you start to see the fans come back to the building and you're getting some excitement where people are paying attention to the team. But you got the trade deadline coming up on February 8th. And most likely, I mean, Danny basically said they're not going to be buyers. Now, they're not going to sell just to sell, but they do want to continue to put themselves in position. And I saw Keith talk about it about 2 weeks ago. He kept talking about the 2025 draft and how they want to keep getting more assets for that draft. Do you think that they make some moves here? They obviously have an extra defenseman now after the Drysdale move, like a Walker or a Sealer, somebody to try to get additional draft picks, or what do you think we see them do in the next couple weeks?
I think stockpiling draft picks is probably a good thing. Is it February 8th, the deadline this year?
I think that's what it is. I'll double check for you.
That's awfully early.
Yeah, I'll double check for you.
I think you might be a month short, but I don't know, unless they changed it.
Jason's a very impatient person.
I like to rush things. As we approach the deadline, though, do you think that March 8th, you're right. So see, I like getting corrected live on the air.
Yeah, I mean, you really had me wondering, because I'm like, whoa, we're like 8 days, 10 days away.
Nah,
come on, Jason, you got to be on the ball with stats like that, brother. You can't be throwing out something a month out before the actual real date.
Chris, we used to do a segment on things I got wrong on the show. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So that's sort of where we've been and where we've come to here. So I'm better than I was, but I screwed it up. So they do have another month, obviously, for the trade deadline. But how would you posture the team if you were kind of in charge? And I mean, knowing the guys and what they're doing over there.
Yeah, I mean, I would do exactly what they're doing. I mean, they've held players accountable. It'll be up to Danny to see what players they can move. Yeah, I mean, the names you've mentioned make sense. I mean, like, is Sean Walker a guy that you're not going to flip and try to get a younger prospect or a pick for? I mean, to me, that would be foolish not to. He's got a career somewhere else, but in terms of what this team's doing, that's not the right play. So a play like that makes sense. There's nothing wrong with Sean Walker, but you have to retain assets and find a way to create those in draft picks or future considerations, whatever it is. And I think that in and of itself is super important, to get to do that. I mean, you have to be ready to make trades, and you have to be ready to make trades of guys that have played well here this year, that have done a good job.
If you were building a team with the current assets and were looking for what is the most important thing that you still need, is there anything more important that they're lacking than a sniper?
No. I mean, that's the skill. I mean, they could probably, they need more skill. I mean, say, if you look at like Konechny, he's come a long way. But I always feel like, as good as he is, he's not that natural sniper. People may say, oh, he's turned the corner, but believe me, I know a goal scorer from a natural goal scorer, in terms of when a guy is just, the puck follows you around. And I don't think that happens with Travis, as great as he's been. And he's become a really, really good player in this league. But again, I think when you look and you hear the word sniper, you're hoping and thinking Mishkov, Ovechkin is a sniper.
Right.
DeBrincat in Detroit is a sniper. Panarin, guys that can shoot the puck, and really do some special things with it. And as we're constructed now, there's not that player here.
Are you happy with the young defenseman? I mean, people were worried with losing Provorov last year, that the defense was going to take a step even further back. It seems like this group, this core, has really played well and has even made the goalies look a lot better.
Yeah, and again, and you know what? But the goalies have been good too. I mean, this has been a solid year of goaltending for this team, and it's as good as I've seen in a while. And obviously, you know, the last few days is it's going to change the future look of what it is. But yeah, I mean, I think the defense have been good. You know, I think Sanheim's taken a step up. I mean, clearly Torts has told a couple of them, like, get up the ice when the puck's up there, just get in the offensive zone and get up and don't worry about things. I mean, and you have to have backup, but you know, that's where that team has to create offense, is the extra defenseman coming up in the play, because they don't have that super skill up front that you're gonna be able to, like Tampa the other night. The Flyers got outskilled by Tampa. That's how you lose to, you know, a team that you might have thought you outplayed at times, but they just make those skill plays that end up costing you a game. Same with Colorado.
Their transition is so fast too. You think you're in a good position, and then the next thing you know, they're just down the ice sniping at your goalie. Let's talk about the goalies for a sec. Obviously, Carter Hart on indefinite leave. The NHL isn't commenting on anything around that. Sam Ersson, now formally the number one. He kind of played like the number one at times during the season. Your thoughts on the goalie situation? They still have more in the system. What's the thought right now?
You know what? It's a good question. I will say this. It has to be Ursan. Like, there's no other guy. You can't share at this point now. Like, you're going to have to find a guy that's a viable backup, and I'm not sure they have an NHL backup in their system. They may tell you they do. I mean, they're going to say on paper they do. But I mean, if this is right now, this is a playoff team, and I want to find out, if I'm the coach, I'm trying to push buttons and pull as many strings as I can to ensure that they stay in that spot. But without Hart here, or whatever that situation is, they're going to have to rely on Sam for an awful lot of games. Makes them feel better. Brodeur used to play 77 out of like 82, so he can suck it up and play.
All right. Well, Chris, we're going to ask you the most important question: is your team, the one you're playing on this week, up for the challenge?
You know, Jeff, I don't know if you could ever really plan for something like that. I'm actually going to skate right after this. I got a call from my old roommate, Johnny Leclerc. You know, it's so funny too. I texted him, and I said, he said, "Hey, there's ice at noon. Hartnell got ice, but we don't have a goalie." So I'm like, all right, like this is the kind of crap we got to deal with, right? Like, this is what we have to deal with in life. So I'm like, all right, good. By the way, I don't have a stick. Can you go in the locker room and find me a left-handed Sanheim stick? Literally, I got my equipment. I have no hockey stick. So I told the Flyers they're calling guys this week playing the alumni game Friday night and said, hey, who needs anything? I said, I don't need anything. I just need a stick. That's it.
Well, and a goalie.
Well, tomorrow we'll have goalies, but today
okay.
we don't have one. Yeah, we'll use a shooter tutor today. Bringing that the old wood carve out that
Jason might be available to sit in goal.
Look, I could just stand there. You guys can hit me with the puck for a while. What's it like to get back together with the guys for things like this? I mean, how special is that for you?
Good. I mean, that was always, for me, was always the best part of being around the guys. And, you know, I think it's good. You know, like I see Johnny back at the games. You know, we were roommates for 10 years in the NHL, and you know, we share a lot of great stories, a lot of great memories, as I do with many guys. So it'll be good to see them. You know, there's a lot of generational gaps. Just thinking for my teams who's playing you know, Mark Recchi, Leclerc, Lindros. I'm trying to think of there's no other defenseman from my era, I don't think. So hey, we're gonna have fun. We got 7 defensemen. 6.5 if you include Joe Watson right now. But we will. I'm sure someone will break his stones tomorrow in the locker. But yeah, Joe's back playing, and you know, so we got guys going from 80 years old to I would say our youngest defenseman is probably Kimmo Timonen, and he might be 45. So it's going to be fun, guys. I'm looking forward to it. It's for charity. We're bringing the Bruins in here. I heard a really nasty rumor that Chara and Bergeron are playing. I don't know if that's true. That would be ridiculously unfair. But it'll be a great evening and a great weekend, and a great shout out to my great friend and teammate, Mark Recchi.
You know, Chris, one of the great things about this organization, I was at the Flyers game when they honored Ed Snyder. And the one thing that I was always most impressed by was the organization from top to bottom, but it started with him. What has it been like to play for that organization, to play for Mr. Snyder, and to see how the Flyers still are a family?
Yeah, and there's no doubt. And that's really, I think, what the best part about this team was, and the worst part of what the last 4 or 5 years represented to everybody in this city was the deconstructing of something that Ed Snyder built. And it was the greatest thing most people in the city had seen. You know, like building a franchise that was family friendly, community based, with players were one with the fans, management, the fans were, it was like everybody was together. And that's rare to see. And that's why the Flyers were the most, I think special to anybody in the city. People like, they bleed the green for the Eagles on Sundays, and it's a crazy time in the NFL. But I always felt like the heart of the city was belonged to the Flyers a little bit for what they were in their infancy as a franchise, and what they mean to the city. Blue collar, hardworking team that, quite frankly, this year's team has exemplified again. But that's not been good enough. There's been many decades now that's passed since there's been a Stanley Cup and a parade here, and that's the goal ultimately. I had great teams, but I didn't win. Maybe a goalie here or there would have changed it. Maybe another player, but at the same time, it's time for this team now to find a way to do it. And it'll be, at least for the next several years, Danny and Jonesy's vision. And whether that works, time will tell. I'm hoping, keeping fingers crossed. There's nothing I'd like to see than an orange and black parade back up Broad Street again.
Well, let's start with a win Friday night versus the Bruins.
That would be get the weekend going.
Chris, thanks so much for always giving us some time to talk about it all. I'll make sure to get the trade deadline right, and hope everything goes well at the game. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you got it, Chase. Thanks, guys.